Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Pillars of Eternity. I'm your host, Colors Fade. It's episode 80. We're inside this building, inside the Iron Flail area. There's a bunch of stuff going on outside. We need to go do that. But first, Maneha has leveled up. We're going to give her a point of survival here. Keep trying to work her up in that area. And then she has a bunch of really neat barbarian abilities, but I tend to favor things that are passives, and this one's really cool. It adds raw damage to anyone unfortunate enough to be on the receiving end of her lashing out. It's like a riposte for her, and it does raw damage. I really like that, so we're gonna roll with that. So now we have to go outside and deal with whatever the heck has been going on out here. So we have these vessels, large metal faceless eyeless dudes who look really scary. We're going to have to fight them. And I'm going to take a minute to explain what the heck is going on here with the voiceover. I recorded this episode and part of the next episode and then realized that the voiceover was gone because the microphone had been accidentally turned off. So I'm having to do all of this in post-production. And because I don't want to have to try to recreate everything line for line, I'm just going to be fast-forwarding through a lot of stuff and cutting a lot of things out. This is going to be like a summary episode so that we can get on to the next one. So bear with me here, folks.
Tell me. I'm ready.
So these guys are not entirely too bad. They can't be charmed or dominated, which is a really normal thing for enemies at this stage in the game, but they do have this big, huge ray that they can shoot, which they all aim at the Devil of Karak, and they kill her right away. We're going to res her to get her back, but it's a real pain in the butt. They can be paralyzed, but the problem is I only have one Cipher, and this is one of the first fights that started to make me really miss having two Ciphers in my group. It was a lot of fun when we had myself and the Grieving Mother, and also when we had a defensive paladin instead of Maneha. And that's kind of the theme for this whole episode and a half that I was recording, is I really missed having that defense. The whole party gets nailed here except for Durance, which is amazing, and I'm surprised I didn't F8 and just reload a quick save and start over. But Durance does a pretty good job of trying to bring everybody back. There's lots of protections going on. The big thing is getting the Cipher up here to cast all of his paralyzation spells on these guys and keep them paralyzed as much as possible, which again would have been easier with two Ciphers to paralyze these three guys and get them down. But we recover from that, we get them all down, and then there's this. So your character ends up having this vision about this eyeless army that's going to come and destroy everything. Derek appears to have taken some blows. There is a purple bruise along his temple, and his armor is dented in several places. He looks rather dazed.
Those things, they came from all sides. The delegate... No, you were right. The visions are true. You fought well. And I am glad to see you've come through in one piece, even if I regret the loss of my men. I'll take what's left of our forces. Those that will follow me further up the mountain. We should be prepared when those monsters return.
We can defeat them if we work together.
I have seen already that there is little you can't accomplish.
So he's going to take off.
You don't mess around when you make enemies, do you?
Those things sure seemed angry for something that's got no face.
Now, the next bit of business is we have an attack coming on the keep back at Cadnua that I'm going to manually resolve. And the rest of this is just looting out this particular outpost, and then we're going to go back and do that. But before we can do that, Durance has leveled up, so we're going to give him a point in survival, and then he's going to get another mastery spell that he'll be able to cast 1 time per encounter. And what we're going to pick for that is Dire Blessing, which is going to turn plus 20% of all hits converted to crits. Then we're back at Cadnua. We're going to initiate this battle, manually resolve it. Band of vicious mercenaries. And it's outside, and they've got a couple of bears. It doesn't take long to take these guys down. So we send our typical situation where Durance is going to come up here and buff everybody. And at this point in the game, for whatever reason, level 13, things just start getting a slight bit more difficult. I think a large part of that has to do with party composition. Again, having Maneha instead of a defensive paladin, having the rogue instead of a second cipher to help charm people because of the numbers and stuff. So I start going more often with just defensive protections, laying down as many defensive protections as possible, and then getting to the offensive ones. And it's over. And with that, we're going to come to the Abbey of the Fallen Moon, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the White March map. We meet this dwarf, Long Bosk, and he's going to have a quick conversation with us and tell us that he has a mistress who's gone up to the Abbey and that there are some side paths up to the Abbey, but we probably shouldn't take those because the monks are always watching, which is a reminder that we're going to reach the most annoying part of this game, which is the introduction of monks. It's a feature in every fantasy role-playing game that I hate, and I am not going to not gripe about this because this is one of my biggest gripes in fantasy role-playing, is that for whatever reason, developers always want to make monks the most powerful character in the game, whether you're playing a monk or playing against a monk. In this case, we're playing against them. I hate it. It doesn't make any sense to me that a character with a bare chest, no armor, no clothing, and no weapons is the most powerful character in every fantasy game. It's like playing against Superman. I just find it totally absurd. But anyways, I digress. We're moving on. I take this left side up here, and there are a bunch of different ways to try to do this, and all of them are really difficult. I found out I had to do two things for sure. You have to manually control your party because the monks can teleport. And Darius the Cipher had to spend all his time and all his focus trying to charm the monks, because since they are the most powerful character on the field, you really have to charm them so they'll fight their own people. And it makes it really hard because everybody else has kind of got to not die while he's trying to do that. You're trying to get the monks to do the most work for you. And of course, they have a really high willpower, so it makes it hard to charm. Durance is doing as many defensive protections as he can and trying to recast defensive protections while also still trying to pull off some healing for people. But it's really about keeping everybody in position and me realizing I really need to get a ranged weapon for my rogue if she's going to stay in there. This is another fight that would have been way easier with a second defensive paladin and to replace Maneha, and if I would have had a second cipher instead of the rogue. But we ended up getting that part, and then that takes us to this area here, which is even worse. So my alternate route was to go down to the eastern side on the bottom right hand portion of the map, because the upper left gets you into this rampart area where it's just too easy to get swarmed and overwhelmed. This route looks enticing at first because the first time you come up on it, there's only two people and you're thinking, oh, that's not too bad. I can do that. And people can be paralyzed and stuff like that. And then down here, I'm thinking there's only two people and oops, nope, there's four. So the job, of course, is to try to get the monk paralyzed. But because of party AI being on and then off and me trying to figure out what the best way it is to go about these fights, it turns into chaos really fast. Unfortunately, my cipher just keeps going down. So when your cipher's dead, he can't sit there and charm and freeze people. He can't paralyze them, and he can't keep the monk charmed. So it's just makes for a way more tough fight than it needed to be. Again, party composition is really hurting me at this point in the game, wanting to take these companions along for their story, but they're not the ideal party members here. So grappling hook gets you over that chasm, and then you find yourself inside the Abbey, and the first thing we do is run into a little soul here and have a soul memory, and it's basically about these people, from what I can gather, being drowned. This is a Andrite temple, and they're the tide people, and so you come in here and you find these cages where there's a whole bunch of people in here, and they're all look like they're being held captive to be drowned in this chamber. And now it comes to monk fight time. And so again, this just ends up being really difficult because of all the monks. And I'm not even going to show most of this because it's just a nightmare. I had to fight several of these encounters over and over and over. And again, party composition is killing me here. I think the way to do this is to go back and at least replace the rogue with Grieving Mother so that we can have a second cipher. Maneha needs to be here because her quest is here, but she's really hindering our ability to do anything because she's really squishy. So that's forcing me to put Pelagina in a second tank role for choke points, and she's getting smashed because that's not Pelagina's role. So at the end here, you can see how much of the Templo map we ended up clearing. All of that span there from the center to the northwest was filled with monks and more monks and more monks. It was a lot of fighting. And it was all very difficult, made much more difficult because our party composition is not great. So, and then towards the upper right, towards the northeast part of the northwest section, there is a staircase that'll take you out onto the ramparts. And if you go out there, you will get absolutely ambushed by a whole bunch of enemies. So to prevent that, I came back down, and this is where I ended the episode, is in the Halls of Silence right here, trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, whether I wanted to explore more of the southern part of the map or not, because going up onto the ramparts seemed like a suicide squad, and maybe I just need to come back with a higher level party for all of this. At any rate, this is where we're at, folks. I didn't want to skip all of this and jump right to the next episode. I didn't want people to miss what actually happened. So this is the summary episode of everything that went on. As usual, if you dig it, thumbs up, subscribe. I will see you all next time. And until then, happy gaming, everyone.